Read about the building of the Mishkan and the materials that were needed for the Mishkan, and the mitzvah, as is expressed in the Torah, "Vosli migdosh v'shachanti b'socham," make for me a sanctuary that I should dwell in your midst. The Ramban, in his introduction to the parsha, to the portion, explains that we find, and he shows clearly, that the Mishkan was a replication of Sinai. Exactly what was at Sinai was replicated in the Mishkan itself. The dimension of God's presence of Sinai and the Mishkan were identical. And what was the objective of Sinai? As it says in Chazal, that God brought Elyono al Tachtonim, he brought heaven to earth. The Mishkan itself was the equivalent of that. The gold represents the fire. The Kruvim, the cherubs, represent HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael. The Chosin and Kala, bride and the groom. Many other equivalent parallels between Sinai and the Mishkan itself. We find at the beginning, Vayikra Hashem el Moshe. So Rashi over there cites Chazal. What was the audibility of the sound of God's voice when he called to Moshe? Because no one outside of the tent heard the voice. Maybe you'd say it was the whisper. Besides psukim, verses, Kol Hashem B'koach, that the voice of that he had spoken to Moshe was no less than the sound, than the audibility of the sound of Hashem's voice at Sinai. And it stopped at the outer curtain. It did not go beyond that point. So the only one who was privy to this voice, which was no less that had spoken to 600,000 people, males above the age of 20, and the rest of Klal Yisrael, the level of audibility was no less than that. But the simple difficulty is, why he's only speaking to Moshe Rabbeinu? As the Ramban explains in this week's parsha, the Mishkan is Sinai. It's a continuous replication of Sinai. The Shekhinah, the divine presence, its dimension, its level of intensity in the Mishkan was no less than Sinai. And therefore, as at Sinai he had spoken to Moshe with that level of audibility, Kol Hashem B'koach, when he speaks, it's not that Moshe should hear. It's because it's the nature of the relationship. God, that only indicates the level of presence of the Mishkan is no less than Sinai. This is what it is. But of course, after we went to Terrestrial, we took the Mishkan, it was transported with us. However, but there was a Moshe. So the conduit, the receiver, even though we had Yeshua was Moshe's successor, but Chazal tell us, Pnei Yeshua is only Pnei Levana. Yeshua's dimension of being, firstly, he didn't prophesize in the wake state. He's only a reflection, as the moon reflects the light of the sun. Yeshua was a semblance of his master, of his teacher, Moshe Rabbeinu. But nevertheless, what exactly is the Mishkan? So during Yom Kippur, when they would prostrate themselves, the Avodas Yom Kippurim, it was no less than standing at Sinai in the presence of the Shekhinah, although the world didn't quake. But again, the reason why Sinai was a problem, because it was in public view. The world was aware of it. It was b'fehesya. It was in public view. The Mishkan was b'tzina, was concealed. It was on a modest level. No one was aware of it unless you were aware of it. And therefore, although in its obviousness it was not there, but in terms of its value and the relationship was no less, which was the ultimate.